All right, and it looks like I should be live. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole digital versus physical nonsense that has been going on. But before I do, I wanted to also just test and see how things are now that I have internet out here in the nerd nest. And if you are here, it's because you're awesome. I didn't tell anybody that I was doing this ahead of time. I just made a quick thumbnail and hit the go live button. And hopefully everything's working okay. Excuse me. Let me just mute while I cough. Sorry about that. I don't know why every time I go live, I immediately start coughing. Okay. So today on the show, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was let me just set up how live streams generally work here on the show. And also let me know how the audio quality is and how the video quality is. I'm currently trying to stream at 4K, which is tough. So we'll see how that goes. So I definitely need to hear from you guys in chat how things are going. But let me just do a quick rundown of how these open mic videos tend to go. I'm getting an alert from YouTube that says that it's not receiving enough to continue encoding at 4K. So hopefully it's okay. I'm not sure, but I'm going to keep talking. All right. So the way that these shows usually go is I will have a topic that I want to talk about, and I'll discuss that with all of you guys. And then as the show goes on, as I talk about that topic, you guys can give me more ideas of other things to talk about in the gaming industry. And that's the kind of stuff that we will chat about. But mostly this is so that I can test my network connection and trying to stream here in the new NerdNest. And big thank you to everybody who's here all together. You guys are awesome. Henry V Prime says it looks like I have a fake background. I can assure you it's not a fake background. In fact, I can come. It's not fake. It's real. Definitely a real background. I don't know if you guys could hear me when I walked away. All right. So, the main topic for today's show that I wanted to discuss is this whole thing with PlayStation ditching physical media. And then we just saw this article hit yesterday about Capcom. Let me bring this up on screen for all of you. It says Capcom hits 93% digital sales record through 2026. So basically in 2026 so far, 93% of the games that Capcom has sold. And I gotta say, I have been saying for a while now that Capcom has been hard carrying the AAA video game industry with the games that they have been putting out. Their games from Capcom, and they've been some bangers this year, 93% of those were digital. And I see this getting bandied about by the people who are defending, I don't want to say defending, but not upset about the idea that Sony is ditching physical media completely. And I keep seeing this pop up. Like people keep saying, well, obviously nobody cares if physical media exists, because if they did, then this number, this 93% number, would not be nearly as high. And I want to talk about that. But first, let's take a look at the article. And I guess if you guys Have comments, leave them in chat, or use the super chat feature if you want to make absolutely sure that I see your message. I will get to the super chats later on in the show if those do come in. So let's take a look at what Capcom actually said. Capcom appears to be pioneering the digital revolution in the gaming space based on recent figures. It was revealed in the company's latest financial report that a whopping 93.3% of all sales recorded through Q1 of the current fiscal year for the firm were digital, leaving physical sales to account for a paltry 6.7%. Now, let's pause there for a second, and I want to talk for a second about those two numbers. So first off, is it true that the vast majority of games that are sold are digital? Absolutely. Every single game that I buy is digital. I buy digital games. And people might hear me say that and say, well, Bill, if you are buying digital games, then what the hell do you give a shit if the games are mostly if the platform holders are ditching physical media? You're not buying physical media. Why do you care? Well, the reason why is because I personally think that choice is important. And to me, I feel like when you are not given a choice, that's always a bad thing for the end user. Right now, I choose to buy I choose to buy all of my games digitally. Why do I do that? Number one, I like the convenience. Number two, I don't want to have a bunch of plastic shit around my house. I just got a nice bigger house than the one that I used to have, but I certainly don't want to clutter it up with a bunch of plastic stuff. As I was unpacking things to put here in the NerdNest, one of the things I came across was a bunch of my physical games for PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch 1. And you know where all of those plastic cases went? Right back into a box and into storage, because I don't need them. I don't use them, and I don't want to have to go grab them if I want to sit down to play a game. If I want to play a game, I just want to sit down, turn it on, and play. So for me, that's the reason why I have a tendency to buy, or not a tendency, that's why I buy games digitally. And of course, there's always people that are like, well, Bill, you're part of the problem. No, I'm not part of the problem. I am exercising my choice, a choice that I think everyone should have, to purchase the media that I would like to consume in the format that I would like to consume it. I want the people who want to do everything physical media, I want them to have that option. I want them to be able to buy discs until the end of damn time. Why? Because choice matters. So just like I get to make a choice about whether or not I want to buy physical media or go digital, other people can choose that too. And they might say, well, Bill, how are you not part of the problem if you're not buying physical games? Even if I was buying physical games, this same thing would still be happening, because these percentages are not telling you the entire story. This is something I have talked about on my channel 1,000 times. Raw numbers generally do not tell the entire story. Sure, they can be helpful to illustrate a point, and sure, they can tell you something about a trend one way or another, but they cannot tell you the entire story. And that is an incredibly important thing to understand. All right, let's get back to the article for a second here. It says this figure was bolstered by the success of Resident Evil Requiem, which is a game that I wish that I had bought. It was on sale, but I was so focused on packing my shit up to get out of the old house and into the new house that I didn't end up buying it before the sale was over. And I just kept thinking, well, I'll get to it eventually. And then the sale was over. So that kind of ticks me off. But, you know, I'm going to pick it up sometime later on this year. I'm sure that there'll be another Steam sale sometime between now and then anyway. But back to the article. This figure was bolstered by the success of Resident Evil Requiem, which has become one of 2026's best-selling titles, pushing Capcom to the highest volume it has seen in 5 years. But, all right, so the digital march pushes on. Recently, Sony Interactive Entertainment revealed an intention to scrap the production of discs. Well, it's not that they revealed an intention to. They are scrapping disc production. They're not doing it anymore. They already repurposed one of their warehouses. That's not the right word. Wherever they manufacture the discs. They already repurposed one of those to make lenses instead of discs. Scrap the production of discs for new PlayStation games from January 2028 onwards. It prompted incredible backlash from the wider gaming community, prompting a petition, a boycott effort, and a global blackout action arranged for late August. So if you don't know about that, basically they're saying in late August, everybody's going to get together and not use PlayStation stuff for a day, or maybe it's a week or something. I can't remember what the exact details are. This is not something that Sony cares about. I don't think that this is going to do anything. I applaud anybody who feels like doing it. And let's be honest, I'm probably not going to use any PlayStation stuff that week anyway. But I don't think it's going to change anything. I think that PlayStation has made this decision because they know that they don't have any real competition. And any competition that they do have wants the same thing that they do anyway. However, the numbers are damning. The damning thing here. Sony arguably made the decision based on an 85% digital sales margin. Let me highlight this. Being front and center in the most recent reports. Capcom's numbers further strengthen the argument for an all-digital future. So basically what this article so far is saying, and they're basically telling you what Sony's argument is look, people don't want to buy physical media. I don't. But because people don't want to buy physical media, we're just not going to keep making it because it's a waste of our resources. Okay, so number one, I find a huge fault with that idea that people don't want to continue to buy physical media. When you look at the game's availability, and you look at the entire catalog of PlayStation's games that can be played on a PS5, for instance, most games are never given a physical release. Most games never get a disc. So for Sony to look at all of those games that are digital only, all of the DLC, which is obviously digital only because DLC doesn't come on discs, all of the other stuff, and you combine those things with the few games that we actually have the option to buy physically, well, of course, it's going to tilt in the favor of digital. It's because they designed it that way. They designed it to make sure that it tilted in an all-digital direction. Sony basically forced us to only buy a small number of physical copies and buy way more digital copies simply by making it so that the physical copies were not available, if that makes sense. So that whole thing where it says that, 85% of the games that are sold on PlayStation are digital, I don't believe that number for a second, because what they're doing is they're moving the goalposts, essentially. They're moving the goalpost and showing you a number, and a lot of people are just going to buy that because is it true that 85% of the games that are sold on PlayStation are digital? Sure. But again, numbers don't tell the entire story. Let's move on. Let's go back to the article. It says, in Q1 of Capcom's current fiscal year, let me highlight this a different color. 93.3% of all games sold were digital. This represented more volume than last year. So basically they're saying the number of digital games that sold last year was smaller than the number of digital games that sold this year. So that has gone up, and it has gone up to 93.3%. Again, that number sounds terrible. So Capcom sold more games this year than they did more games in that Q1 of this current fiscal year than it did in Q1 of the previous fiscal year. Okay. And it sold 93% of those as digital only. All right. If we keep going, it says this represented more volume than last year, with 64% growth being seen year over year, which is really good for Capcom. And that's not a surprise because their games are freaking awesome. But 2025's percentage was higher. Last year, 95.2% of all Capcom games sold were digital. So Capcom sold more games Q1 than it did last Q1. However, last year there were more digital games sold than this year. Again, when you're looking at 93.3% versus 95.2%, I think that's, 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. Those numbers are not like a big deal. You know what I mean? All right. So they continue to say, to put it into perspective, 2023 represented a 5-year low with 85% sales being digital, but the consumer behavior is tangible and very apparent in the numbers. All right. Now, here's where things start to fall apart because, and I saw somebody say it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Here we go. Right here. This is from Scratch's 12Me Video Games. Says only 61% of the 93% digital comes from PC Steam alone. Yeah, that is a big, important point to point out. Yes, Capcom sold 93% of their games digital only, with only, what was it? Was the number 6? Well, I guess 6.7% physically, but over 60% of all games that Capcom sold were sold on PC. And on PC, there are no digital games. Or I'm sorry, there are no physical games. You can't really go to a store and buy physical PC games for the most part. So what you have to look at is, well, let's remove all of that. So if we go to Capcom's website, which, where's my mouse cursor? Here we go. If we go to Capcom's website where they look at this, we can see right here. Where is it? Here we go. All right. So it says digital sales. Why is this not working? There we go. Digital units right here. And if we follow that across to the right, it says right here. I've lost it. I zoomed in just a little too far. This is hard. This is definitely difficult to read across because they didn't alternate the colors of the rows. But yeah, here we go. 60.4% of all sales for Capcom was on PC, with only 32.9% on console. So when you hear that Capcom sold 93% digital, what that doesn't take into consideration is the fact that only 30% had the option of ever buying physical media, which is ridiculous. It's a number that, and I don't blame Insider Gaming for posting this because it is interesting information, and you bet your ass I used it as the headline to this video, right? So when you look at that information, it's clear to me that they are, adjusting the numbers so that they can tell a certain story, a story that supports the idea of getting rid of physical media. Now, I think that in the Insider Gaming article, which I'm going to try and find there, that's my YouTube channel. That's not what I was looking for. I think I saw somewhere that it said that Capcom had no interest in ditching physical right now. And I think that that's good for them to say that right now. But right now it's a hot button topic. And so a lot of people are going to like really latch on to something like that. So I think it's good for Capcom to say that. But like I said before, Capcom is hard carrying the industry at this point, right? And I think it's possible that Capcom is going to change their mind later on down the road, probably closer to 2028. They're just not going to mention it. And they're going to say, well, I mean, we wanted to do physical media, but the PlayStation doesn't have a disc drive. So what are we supposed to do, right? And then they're just going to move on with what every single publisher wants. They all want to end physical media. Why do they want to end physical media? Because physical media gives consumers choices or customers choices. And so when you walk into a store, when you walk into a GameStop and you pick up a copy of Resident Evil, it was that 9, 10. We'll say 10 is the next one. When you look at a copy of Resident Evil 9, you're like, oh, okay, this is a $70 game, or maybe it's 80. I can't remember. But then you look on the shelf over here and you're like, oh, wait a second. On that shelf, I can buy that for 40 because it's a pre-owned version. Well, I'm going to buy the pre-owned version. Capcom doesn't get a dime of that money. They don't get any of that pre-owned revenue. That all goes to GameStop. And they don't like that. So, of course, they want to kill that physical media. And by getting rid of that physical media, then that kills the secondary market, and it ends that comparison shopping where people look at one and they look at the other and they say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get the cheaper one. So when Resident Evil 10 comes out and you walk into a store and you decide to buy Resident Evil 10 and it's, I don't know, maybe $90. Who knows how much it's going to be by 2028? But you've got that $90 version in your hand, and you look over at the shelf and there are no pre-owned Resident Evil 10s for sale anymore. They're all gone because it's just a code in a box. And once you use that code, you can't trade it in. And so this is something that Capcom wants, in my opinion. This is something that absolutely PlayStation wants. I saw rumors that Microsoft might be toying with the idea of continuing to have a disk drive in Project Helix. I'm going to say hold off until we see some real news on that. You know what I mean? But overall, I think that this entire idea that what was the number? I want to make sure I get the number right. That 93% of digital sales, or I'm sorry, 93% of Capcom sales are digital because we're choosing that is ridiculous. And let me give you another reason why that's ridiculous, because I've been thinking about this all day. All right. Here's the other reason that's ridiculous. Do you remember when the PlayStation 5 was released? When the Xbox Series was released? And they were incredibly hard to get because of the chip shortage. This is right at the end, or it was right during the pandemic. There was this chip shortage. We couldn't get the chips, and everything was really hard to get. I remember trying to get a PlayStation 5 over and over and over. And the only reason that I was able to get a PlayStation 5 is because one of you bought it and sold it to me at cost. I didn't have to pay a markup fee in order to get my PlayStation 5. A viewer bought it and then sold it to me for the exact same price, just because they wanted me to have one so that I could talk about it, which is super awesome of you, and I appreciate it. And you know who you are. We actually played a few games together. But when that generation, the current generation, started, there were disc versions and there were non-disc versions. And I was lucky enough to get a disc version. I didn't care. I wanted a no disc version because I'm not going to buy any discs, but I ended up getting a disc version because that's the one that was available. I would have bought the cheaper one if that was an option. But there's a lot of people out there that really wanted a disc version and couldn't get their hands on one. And then, you could get the disc as an add-on after the fact, except they're never available. They're really hard to get. Those discs, the discs add-ons are always sold out, and they're only sold by one company, and you know who that is. That's PlayStation. And so the people who have PlayStations, I would bet that there's quite a few of those people who wanted to buy discs for, we'll say, Resident Evil Requiem or for Pragmata, but they decided that, they got the cheaper one because it was available, and then they couldn't get a hold of a disc drive for it. So then they were trapped buying digital-only games, whether they like it or not. And again, this is everything that it feels like everything is designed in order to push the customers towards that digital storefront, whether they wanted it or not, just so that they could later then take these numbers and throw them on our face and say, see, you guys don't like physical anyway. All right. That's my rant about it. Now, I want to take a look at what you guys have been talking about in chat. So I'm going to scroll up for a bit. And thank you very much, Jigex, for yes, I got the new setup. I'm super happy about it. Hopefully you guys are telling me that everything sounds and looks great, like Jigex did as well, because I was talking for, I don't know how many, for 20 minutes at this point, and I didn't really look at chat while I was doing it. Okay. Let's see. What Mac do I use for streaming? This is, shoot, I don't remember. Is this an M4? About this Mac. This is, no, it's an M3 Max. So this is my laptop, MacBook Pro M3 Max. Cryo Token says that RE Engine is incredible. I agree with that. Glenn Mail Lane says they're counting game key cards as digital, apparently. I mean, okay. So, I mean, the thing is about game key cards is that they are kind of both at the same time. You can trade them back in. The code isn't stuck to your account or anything, which is a very, very good thing, because if it was stuck to your account, then we'd all be, you know, it wouldn't be a very good thing to happen. But at the same time, they are just digital because you have to download the game. The game is not on the cartridge. So I don't know if it should be counted as physical or it should be counted as digital. But thank you, Glenn, for letting me know about that. I didn't see that part. Earth is better when you're, okay. Airthin's better when you're high says, let's get rid of the plastics that will outlive us. Just save your DRM-free games to your own local storage. Yeah, in fact, I have a video coming out probably tomorrow that's all about actually owning your games. You know, owning the games that you are buying, and good news for Linux people. So look for that video to come out tomorrow. Raven Knight says, hey, Bill, how are things? Have you got this? Whoops. Have I got the Steam machine yet? If so, how are you liking it? I do have a Steam machine. I basically said that I wasn't going to buy one because they're too expensive. And my wife talked me into it. She said, well, I mean, you'll probably make some of the money that we're going to spend on it back on buying it. And is it something that you'll use? And I said, yes, I would use it. And so basically my main PC is over there. You can't see it. It's like, here's the arcade cabinet, and it's that way a little bit, and there's like a TV over there. My main PC is here in the Nest. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Steam machine in the house, because I'm in an attic above my garage. So I'm going to use the Steam machine in my house, and I'll have an account on it, and my son will have an account on it, and my wife doesn't really play games, but I'll make her an account as well, because then, like, I bought some games that I thought that she would enjoy, and you know, everybody deserves a little bit of downtime, even if you don't generally play games. I think when she takes a look at the Word game that I bought for her, she'll really enjoy it. And honey, if you're watching this, you didn't know about that. Shh, don't look. All right. So I am going to be using it, and I've got a video coming where I'm going to be taking a look at it, but I wanted to sit down and try my setup here for a live stream. This is basically the hardest thing that I can do here in the NerdNest with my internet the way it is. Let's see. Yeah, Scratch 12Me video says only 61% of 93% digital comes from PC Steam alone. Exactly. Forced us is a big word. I don't know if I mean forced us, but basically they didn't give us options. We didn't have to buy the games. We could have just said no games at all. We could have said no disc, no buy, but we didn't. But they didn't give us the option to give them money for a disc a lot of the time. And yes, it is a surprise stream. So thank you for showing up. I didn't tell anybody about it. All right. Capcom is killing it lately. They have a new Ninja game demo that's awesome. A new Ninja game? What's the name of the game? I played Pragmata and I freaking love that game. That game was awesome. I've actually finished it. If you've been watching my show for any length of time, you know that I don't finish games. I never finish games. So if I finish a game, it must be a pretty damn good game. And Pragmata is an incredibly good game. And I know that people usually say Pragmata, and I say it Pragmata. But then when I was playing the game, they actually said it in the game Pragmata. So I felt like I should be saying Pragmata. So half the time I say it the right way, and half the time I say it the way that everybody says it. 23% of sales on console were physical. Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's the exact numbers, but yes. Way more people are buying physical games on console. It's just on PC, we don't have the option. And for the people who are buying digital games on console, they may not have the option to play a physical game, so they have to buy the digital game if they want to play that game. Also, I've got a fan pointed at me because it's freaking hot up here. So if the fan is like making too much noise, please let me know in the comment section or in the chat because I'm very curious. All right. So Alien Isolation said, so just counting PlayStation 5 sales, 28% of Resident Evil Requiem sales were on disc, nearing 1 million copies on shelves. Okay. Oh, that's from Alina Analytics. Okay. I did not know about that. Thank you. Not insignificant. How many of the 77% were titles that were digital only for consoles? Also, was Capcom counting DLC? DLC is not available physically. I don't know if Capcom was counting DLC or not, but I think that it could be. Compact discs have been dying since movies and music went digital. We can expect them to keep making them. We can expect them to keep making them when the quantities used by consoles don't make production runs that are viable. I don't agree with that at all. You know what I was doing when I first woke up this morning? Here's what I did. I woke up, I got in the shower, I got ready, I went downstairs, and I started doing some research for the show. And while I was doing research, I walked over to my front window in my house, and I turned on the stereo, and I turned on the record player, and I grabbed an album, like an actual record, a vinyl, and I put it on, and I listened to it. And guess what? I bought that vinyl a couple of weeks before we moved. I bought that vinyl, and it's new music that is on vinyl. So other companies can do it. And guess what? I almost guarantee you it costs a lot more to make a vinyl than it does to make a Blu-ray disc. And ship it. Like, vinyls are heavy. Blu-ray discs are light as hell. So this idea that, it's too expensive to keep making, I don't buy that for a second. I disagree with that completely. Alien Isolation 84 says, you asking me? This is just a PlayStation statistic. It's not counting Nintendo, Xbox, or PC, which is why it's not 93%. This is just a PlayStation statistic. It's not counting Nintendo, Xbox, or PC. Well, but Capcom games are sold on the other platforms too. I guess I'm not really sure what you mean, Alien. All right, let's keep going. Ghosts of Yote is 35% physical. Alina Analytics, 35% physical. Okay, what's the point that you're trying to make? Are you saying that I shouldn't? Okay, just because fewer people buy discs doesn't mean discs shouldn't exist. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. And it seems like you're okay with discs going away, which, guess what? If we all agreed on everything, the internet would be a really boring place. So I'm fine with people disagreeing with me. But I don't think that means that we should get rid of something just because most people aren't buying them. And again, go back to what I said earlier. A lot of people don't have the option to play the disc version because they couldn't get a disc PS5 and they couldn't get a disc drive for their PS5 because they're constantly sold out. Resident Evil for Switch got me with the code. All the games weren't on one cartridge, so I bought it and I only got one game. Oh, so you didn't download the rest of them default username? Why didn't you download the rest of the games if they're all supposed to be on the cartridge? Or I'm sorry, if the cartridge gives you access to all of them and then you have to download them. Why wouldn't you download them? I would buy a game on a USB stick if I could. I would imagine that a USB stick would cost more to manufacture than a Blu-ray disc. Many big games have outgrown the size available on the disc. I'm curious about that. How big are Blu-ray discs? Oh, this is telling me the size. How much can Blu-ray discs hold? Okay, so according to Google's AI slop, let's bring this up for you guys. It says 25 gigs on a single layer and 50 gigs on a dual layer disc. Special high capacity BDXL and Ultra HD disc can hold 66, 100, or even 128 using triple or quadruple layers. Okay, so first off, when you say that you can't hold the games on the disc, well, guess what? Back in the PlayStation 1 days, one of the greatest games of all time, Final Fantasy VII, that came on, was that 3 or 4 discs? It came on multiple discs. It was perfectly fine to put it on multiple discs. If it costs so much more to make those discs, then you know what? Pass the cost on to the consumer. People will choose to buy digital because it's cheaper. Oh, wait. Most of the time it wasn't cheaper. But you know, they can just, whoops, I'm sorry, let me mute my, I just got an email. I don't need that dinging you guys. It worked back in the day where we bought multiple discs. It worked fine. It's okay if they have to use more than one disc. The numbers on those digital copies on PS5 were manipulated. I know plenty of people who want a disc drive and can't get one on their PS5 Pro or Slim. Yeah. I'm not one of those people. I don't want a disc drive because I'm all digital. I'm fine with it. But I want people to have choice. I want the people who want to use physical media to be able to use physical media. And if you're one of those people who says, well, I don't want physical media, so who cares if it goes away? What's wrong with you? Don't you care about other people's happiness? You only care about your own? I don't understand that. And I'm not saying that that's what you were saying, Spore. Just saying that a lot of the people who I see arguing the other side, they're like, I don't use digital, so who cares? I'm like, man, what happens when somebody wants to get rid of something that you do care about? And I'm supposed to be like, oh, I don't use that, so what do I give a shit? Alien Isolation. By the way, that game is friggin' awesome, and I am hyped for the sequel. It says 50% of Xbox games play with Xbox servers. Source does it play. 50% of Xbox games play with Xbox servers. Okay. I don't know what you mean by that. This notion that games are keys is bogus. Oh, I didn't say that all games are keys. Some of them are for sure, but many of them are not. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is 150 gigabytes and it comes on 2 discs on PS5. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Just put it on multiple discs. Debobate, but man, these names. Man, your new NerdNest looks absolutely incredible. Love the space and the vibe. Truly happy for you. Congrats. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. PC is all digital, keep in mind. Yes, PC is all digital. And so I saw a lot of people saying, well, you know, if it's okay for PC to be all digital, but it's not okay for PlayStation to go all digital. Here's the big difference there. Number one, PC is an open platform. I don't have to buy games on Steam. I can buy it from GOG. I can buy it from from Battle.net. I can buy games from a million different places. I don't have to buy them on Steam. Point number 2. Valve didn't make the decision for everybody to make games all digital. They didn't choose that everybody would have to go digital. All they did was open up a store, and people stopped buying the physical media in the stores. So all the other companies decided to stop making physical PC games. That's a big difference. PlayStation owns Blu-ray and controls it. It's a closed platform. So when they take it away, you don't have any other options. You can't go and buy games any other place. And if you don't, my problem isn't so much that physical media is going away, although I do think that physical media should remain. My biggest problem is that you can't trust these companies to not take your shit away from you after you bought it. And look no further than PlayStation making this announcement, and then the exact same week that they made that announcement, they also took 500 movies off of their platform and said to everybody who bought those movies on our platform, you don't get a refund. You just can't watch the movie that you gave us money for. If media can be taken away from us at any time, then a refund should be able to be given back to us at any time. That's one thing that drives me absolutely crazy. With all the discussion of how much digital versus disc, it will sooner or later go digital with music and movies. Nobody will change that, and nobody complains about Steam digital only. Well, that's because Steam is not the only place that you can play games. A PC is an open platform. If I want, I can buy games from GOG. And those games have no DRM. And if I have a backup of it on a hard drive, I can always play that game. You can't do that on PlayStation. On PlayStation, when you buy a game from PlayStation, eventually they can and have shown that they will take it away from you. Spore says, not to mention they sell out of a disc when a game launches and then they don't restock. Capcom was sold out of Resident Evil 9 and Pragmata, but it took them a bit to restock. Yeah, that's something that I did not mention, what I should have. The idea that when you go to buy a game, if it's not on the shelf and you're like, well, I mean, everybody's talking about this game and it's really, really good now, I could be patient and wait. Or I could just buy it digitally so that I can play it now because my local GameStop didn't have any copies of it. Well, I guess I'm going to buy the digital one. Again, is that on us? Yeah. But do they control how many that they make? Absolutely. And they know that people are going to buy them instead of being patient. They know that they'll switch over to digital because it's more convenient and because they don't have the option to go out and buy the physical game. Could they have waited? Absolutely. The customer could have waited and for a physical copy to come back into stock. But if you don't think that companies are saying, all right, well, here's how many we're going to make. And somebody might say, well, should we make more? I think the demand might be there. Well, but if we make fewer, that'll mean it sells out really fast. And then we can say, hey, look, our game's sold out. And the people who go to the store to pick up the physical media, they might say, well, I guess I'm going to buy it digital because it's out of stock. They know that, and they're going to do that stuff on purpose, in my opinion. You don't agree Sony will go through with this? I do think that Sony will go through with this. I don't see any world in which Sony backpedals on this, no matter how many times that they tweet out something. And I love that people keep doing this. The no disc, no buy replies to every single thing that Sony tweets. God, they made this absolutely asinine. It wasn't PlayStation that tweeted this, but it was Sony Electronics posted something about a record that you could buy, right? A physical media. And I was like, man, that could not have been more poorly timed than it was, because everybody was saying, see, PlayStation, this is how it's done. But I do think that Sony will absolutely go through with this, because if for no other reason, then they've defeated Microsoft. Well, Microsoft defeated themselves, essentially. When you look at Nintendo, Nintendo doesn't compete directly with Sony. It's usually people either, if you're a Nintendo fan, you're going to have a Nintendo system, whether you're playing the other systems or not, in my opinion. So I feel like Sony doesn't have any real competition as, you know, a box that goes underneath the TV. They've defeated their main competition, Microsoft. So now they can do whatever they want. And this is the kind of thing where you're like, okay, they're going to fly too close to the sun, and they better be careful, Icarus, because those wax wings are going to melt. But I think that they feel like they don't care if they piss a bunch of people off. They can just keep on going. Sure, lots of people asked before, but is the NerdNest podcast coming back this weekend? It is. We are recording tomorrow night, and we're going to sit down and record. I wasn't sure, like my plan was to record last Friday, but I couldn't record because I couldn't get internet out here. It took me until today to get the internet out here, which is why I'm doing this this live stream, is to test things. Bill, I love you, but I'm not doing that to listen to music. Black Zinfandel, you are missing out, man. It is real. There's something tangible and satisfying about picking up a record and putting it on the record player and dropping the needle on it and cranking up the sound. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, ooh, the vinyl sounds warmer or whatever. No, that's a bunch of bullshit. Listen, just like the shit that you like. I like vinyl because I like the idea of going through my vinyls and finding something to listen to, getting it out and putting it on to listen to. I like the act of doing it. I don't like the act of finding it's not as fun for me to go up to a shelf and find a game and then open it up and put the cartridge in. That's not quite the same. But guess what? It's subjective. And you know what? You and I don't have to like the same things. But I love listening to a record. In fact, I just bought the other day the 50th anniversary of the Grateful Dead Steal Your Face. They did this reproduction over at rhino.com. It's sold out now. But it's the Steal Your Face album, and it's a red record and it's a blue record, and I cannot wait for it to arrive. I pre-ordered it. I don't know when it gets here, but it's sold out now. But again, that's another thing where you're like, okay, I'm going to listen to this album right now, and you just take it out and put it on. It's just awesome. Alien Isolation, again, they says, if they do go through with this in 2028, we just don't support the next God of War Ragnarok. Only sold 15 million copies. God of War 6 can struggle to sell 10 million without the collectors. The thing is that, and this is unfortunate, I feel like gamers, they got about as much willpower as, I don't know, a 3-year-old. You know, there's this test that is like a psychology test where you tell a little kid, you put them in front of a marshmallow. There's this big ass marshmallow in front of the kid, and you say, I'm going to leave for a few minutes. You can have this marshmallow right now, but if you don't eat it, I'll come back in a few minutes and I will bring you another marshmallow. So you can have 2 marshmallows. And then they leave, and then the kid eats the marshmallow because they just can't wait. There's this hilarious video where they see like this kid trying his hardest not to eat the marshmallow, but he cannot help himself. He's just like, oh my God. So that's what I think most gamers are like. They have absolutely zero patience because we are constantly given that dopamine fix by playing video games. And I put myself in that category too. I like the convenience of playing digital games. So I don't go with the physical games, even though physical games are probably the better way to go for me because they're preserved a little bit better. That is until the servers get shut down. And sure, most games will start up if you have a PlayStation not connected to the internet. But there's quite a few that won't. You know, you buy a game, you bring it home, and it needs a patch in order to run. That kind of thing. Always bad. Alien Isolation 84 says, what I mean is PlayStation 5 Resident Evil Requiem sales only on PlayStation is 20%, 28% disc sales. Yeah, because a lot of people couldn't. I mean, yes, there's people who just want to get digital like me, But there's also a lot of people that wanted to get physical, but they couldn't get physical either because it was sold out or because they don't have a disk drive and the disk drive was sold out. Black's Inventel says, I don't think it's for anything other than they're not going to lose sales to used games any longer. Yes, exactly. And now GameStop is weaker than they used to be. Now it's time to push that. And I agree with that, but it's also so that they can completely control the price. You see, if Sony doesn't have to worry about what it costs in a store, because what usually happens is in stores, the games go on sale and they have to go on sale because they also have that used copy on the other side of the store, you know? But if those games aren't going to go on sale as often, then the games on the digital store aren't going to go on sale as often either, and the sales won't be as good. And I think that when you look at that as a way for them to control the price, they're also, the more control that they have, the more that they can push you. And don't forget, PlayStation recently got caught doing variable pricing, where one person was trying to find out the price of a game and it was a certain price. I don't remember what the price was. And then a different person was logged into their PlayStation account and they looked at the price and they saw a different price. This variable pricing strategy, changing the price all the time so that it's different based on who is actually looking at it. Maybe they know that based on the data that they have about you, that you make $300,000 a year. Okay, well, they're going to charge you $80 for during the next sale. But there's a guy down the street who makes $50,000 a year. Guess what? They're going to charge him a little bit less, which might sound fair, but the price should be what the frickin' price is. It shouldn't change based on who's looking at it. That's scummy way to do business. And that's what Sony's been doing. Black Zinfandel says, not saying I agree, but I think people are focusing on the wrong aspect of this. Well, I think that there's two ways that you can focus on this. You can focus on the demise of physical media, or you can focus on the demise of ownership. And what really needs to happen, physical media or no physical media, what really needs to happen is we need politicians that actually understand how technology works, and they need to say, you know what? We need to preserve the customer's right to own the thing that they bought. So if I buy a game, it can't be taken away from me. The same way that it can't be taken away from me on GOG. So get that DRM bullshit out of here. Get that nonsense gone. Make it so that companies are not allowed to shut down the servers that host these games that were only ever digital and never had physical releases. They can't shut those servers down because games should be preserved like art, because games are art. Also, if you're somebody who, you know, has a local library and you go down to that library, guess what they have there? They have physical media games, and you can borrow them and play them. It's a really cheap way to play games. That's not really related to the ownership aspect. That's just something that I thought of in the moment. Peak physical disc production for all media was 4 to 5 billion a year in the mid 2000s. It's down to sub 100 million. The whole operation requires an industrial scale to work. Record albums. People are still making record albums. Why can't they make a Blu-ray? I don't agree with that. Even if you only, but boy, I feel like today I'm that guy from Tangled with all the swords pointed at him. Nobody seems to agree with me. That's okay. It doesn't bother me. Let's see. Switch is a 64 gigabyte cart. Yes, Nintendo can't control that though, because they buy the parts of those carts from other companies, and the largest that they could buy is 64 gigs. Final Fantasy VII was 3 discs. Okay, man, I'm pretty far behind on all the things that you guys have been saying. I'm going to have to scroll faster. Janine Love says, I still want people to have choice too. All right, awesome. Nick V says, well said. Hey, somebody not pointing a sword at me. GOG, you own the file. That's right. Let's see. Repa says 93% don't hit the like button. Yeah, come on, man. We got, I don't know how many people are watching, but you know, click that like button. It helps. It helps out a ton. You could even buy your PC game from Subway. Wait, really? You could buy PC games from Subway back in the day? I don't believe you. Do you guys remember when Subway used to cut that triangle notch out of the top of the bun and then put the meat in it and put that stupid triangle on top of it? What a stupid idea. Valve is being sued for price fixing despite PC having multiple storefronts, so it doesn't matter. Well, the thing is that when you are so big, and I think Valve should be sued for price fixing if that's what they're doing. Because once you're big enough, your actions can affect the entire industry. And when you look at the number of all the different PC storefronts where you can buy stuff, Valve is just a gargantuan powerhouse when it comes to that. So when they make a policy, it can affect everyone, whether you want it to or not. And so if they are doing that thing, and just to catch everybody up on that, if Valve is telling, we'll say Kodiak Moonwolf, who's one of my mods here, Kodiak Moonwolf wants to make a game. All right, so he makes a game and he goes to put it on Steam, and Steam says, okay, set your price. And then he sets the price. And then he says, I'm going to sell it on my website with a Steam key for half of what I sell it for on Steam. And Valve says, you can't do that. That's our Steam key. I think Valve is 100% legitimate. It's okay for them to say that. However, if what Valve is accused of doing is saying, okay, Kodiak Moonwolf, you've put your game on Steam and you've set your price, and then you sell the EXE, not a Steam key, but the EXE on his own website for half of what Valve says, and then Valve says, oh, you can't do that, we'll delist you if you do that. That's a step too far. And it's only a step too far because Valve is so big. If Valve were a small boutique website that sold just a few games per year, then that would be okay. Who cares? But if Valve is doing what they're accused of, and we'll see what happens with the lawsuit, then I do think that it's wrong to do it that way. And every time I say something like that, people get super pissed at me and they downvote the video, and then nobody sees the video. Let's see. I don't agree with it until we see the results of the lawsuit, until we actually see what happens in court. I don't think it's a witch hunt. I think that it is a legitimate lawsuit if what Valve did is what I just said. But if it was just about Steam keys, then Valve is completely within their own it's completely reasonable for Valve to say you can't sell Steam keys for less than you sell on Steam, because that's our key. Let's see. GOG is no different than burning music to an ugly disc, and no different than a Nintendo key cart that's not a collector item. There's no value in that. You don't think there's value in buying a game and being able to back it up on a hard drive so that you can play it sometime later down the road? I can't understand that. I can't understand that idea at all. And, oh, hey, thank you so much to Kodiak Moonwolf for being a member for the last 72 months since I mentioned you. All right. Let's see. Who cares about the collector value in this? Well, I mean, I don't, for me, but I want people who like to collect things to find the value there. I want them to be happy. And these companies make so much money. a couple of cents on a disc, not that big of a deal. It really isn't. Reckon Havoc says Sony is bad and don't care about the consumer. Let me change that for you. All companies, no matter who they are, none of them are your friends and none of them are evil. They're all designed for one reason and one reason only, to make money. Valve usually is painted as the good guy. Why is Valve painted as the good guy? I think because mostly Valve understands that doing things that are good for the customer breeds loyalty. And so most of the time, Valve does good stuff. They're not always good, though. Sometimes they do really shitty things, like how they handle the gambling that happens on Steam. Collectors ruin hobbies. Some collectors ruin hobbies. You know, I collect stuff. My son collects Pokemon cards. He's not ruining the hobby for anyone. It's the weirdos that go and they, like, I saw this video of this guy who walked into I don't know if it was a Walmart or a Target or whatever the hell it was, but he walked into this building or this store and he bought every single Pokemon card that existed in that store. Like, there were people who were going through the bins and he just grabbed the bin, dumped it into his cart, grabbed the next bin, dumped it into his cart. As soon as somebody set a bin down, he grabbed that one, dumped it into his cart. Those kind of people, they're scalpers. They're the ones ruining it for everybody. And then companies that do the, you know, that grade your comics or grade your video game, that, like, those companies, I think that they're also bad for the hobby as well. And yeah, Black Zinvitel just said it perfectly. Those are speculators or scalpers. They're not collectors. Collectors collect things because they like them. Like my son, he's been trying to collect every issue of Absolute Batman. He loves Absolute Batman. He's got a tattoo of Absolute Batman. So getting every single Absolute Batman was something that he wanted to do. And it's not because he's turning around and selling them. Like, that's a collector. That's not a scalper. Alien Isolation says, I want something beautiful display and curated collection that says this is what I like. Preservation is only part of this conversation. Well, I mean, preservation is only a part. I mean, of course, this conversation is not all about preservation, but preservation is a big part of it for me. Not because I want to preserve stuff for me, but because I want to preserve art. Like Harrison Ford, it belongs in a museum. You know, it belongs in a museum. Art should be preserved, and video games are art. Funkus McDougal, that's a fun name, says, also Steam puts game on sale. I don't understand why people are fighting against discs. It's about choice. It's about control. Also, it's about control. Do you want there to be less options? Why defend a company? Okay, so in order to answer that question, why people defend Sony in this? Well, number one, because they don't use the thing, and like the discs, they don't use the discs, and so they don't see any point in preserving them. That's one reason why people defend that. Secondly, because somehow everything is tribalistic in nature. You are either for something or you are against something, and there is no in between. There's for a lot of the people who are screaming online, there is no in between. There's no nuance. I try on this channel to have nuance. I try to, when a company does something that I like, I praise them. When a company that does something that I don't like, I call them assholes. And both things can be true at the same time. You can have a company that does this that's good, that does this that's bad. But what happens is you get these tribalistic morons that are like, nothing that Sony can do is wrong. And then you get the people on the other side that are like, everything that Sony does is wrong. That's not how it works. Some companies will do good things and do bad things, and they will do both of them at the same time. Companies are not your friends, and companies are not evil. They're neither of those things. They're a corporation that is designed to make money. Nuance is dead. Sony is like, do you guys have not have Wi-Fi? Do you guys not have phones? My wife just texted me. I got to see what it... You have drill. Yes, I have drill. It's at the top of the stairs. 1 second. I got to grab the drill. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I love the idea of physical stuff. Vinyl does not sound better. No, it sounds scratchy. But there's something about it that's fun. It's just fun. It's just fun. Retailers not being able to sell stock is what happened with E.T. E.T.? Oh, right. Okay, yes, E.T., the video game crash. You talking about that was... You're not wrong, but it was a bigger issue than just that. Atari didn't have any control over what games were being released on their systems. And on top of that, there were so many competitors. Like, everybody had a box to sell. Everyone did. And because of that, the average customer walked into the store and they said, well, I don't know, every time I buy a game for this thing, it turns out to be a piece of shit. So I'm not going to buy games for this thing anymore. And you combine that with the fact that Steven Spielberg basically asked, I can't remember his name, the guy who made the E.T. game. He's like, can you make this in 4 months? And the guy was like, I guess so. And so he just shat out a game real fast. That said, I think the E.T. is not nearly as bad as everybody says it is. It's not a good game, but it's not the travesty that everybody says that it is. I played it a bunch when I was a kid. I have a copy. It was actually fun. I had fun with it. More swords pointed at me, I guess. Kid with the marshmallow is like people with paid subscriptions. Well, I mean, I have subscriptions because there's shows that I like to watch. They're not available on disc. You cannot watch them any other way. If I want to watch Ted Lasso, which I do, season 4 comes out soon. I love Ted Lasso. It's a great show. It's super positive. Every time I watch an episode, I end up smiling. It's a great show. I can't watch that any other way than by subscribing to Apple TV. And I'm okay with that. But I wish that there was a box set that people could buy if they wanted to own it. Just telling you from someone who follows politics and stuff like that alien, consumer boycotts rarely do anything. If Sony announced this, it was really decided months ago. I agree with that 100%. Sony does not care what we think because they don't have to. And yes, we need the government to regulate to see any change. Perfect example. The hearings that brought about the ESRB. So basically, I think that, the violence in Night Trap and the violence in Mortal Kombat was overblown. Okay. There was a bunch of scare tactics, and politicians were absolutely, trying to grasp at things so that they could look at me protecting kids. You know what I mean? But the only reason the ESRB exists is because the government said, hey, we are going to regulate you if you don't regulate yourselves. I believe it was Sega went to Nintendo and they said, hey, would you guys want to work together on something and we can a rating system? And Nintendo said, We don't have blood in our games. You're the ones who are in trouble. So no, we're not going to work with you. But then when it turned out that, you know, the regulators were going to start regulating, Nintendo said, okay, I guess we'll work with you guys. And that's where the ESRB formed. I love the wood paneling, Bill. I hope you're digging the new place. I hope you guys are digging the new place. I'm very worried about the sound in here because it's a very big room and it's a lot of flat surfaces. So hopefully the sound sounds okay in here. Scott Nist says 4 to 5 billion discs a year in the mid 2000s, sub 100 million now, a profound decline. Yes, but it was a planned decline. They put the chess pieces on the board in a way that caused the decline, if you know what I mean. Kining says, as long as I have a physical copy with my EXE on it, I can install anywhere. Physical ain't dead. Real problem indeed is ownership, because without ownership, they'll be gone after some years. I agree 100%. But I also want physical for people that want physical. Scrolling a little faster because I got a lot of comments that come in. Format shifting media should be okay. I don't know what that means. Does that mean I buy something on a disc and then I convert it over to a digital thing? Is that what you mean by format shifting? Or I buy something digital and then I make a backup of it? That's format shifting. If that's what you mean, I agree with you. That should be okay. Unfortunately, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or DMCA, kind of put the kibosh on that kind of thing. Lots of stock shareholders use bots to influence public sentiment. I agree with that, but that happens on both sides. There's bots on both sides. Absolutely bots on both sides. Nuance is dead, and if you don't agree, then you're pathetic. That's funny. That's very funny. Nobody forced a majority of consumers to buy digital. Well, nobody forced them to buy digital, but they didn't give us options to buy physical in a lot of cases. That's the argument that I'm trying to make. I'm not saying that they came into my house and said, you're going to buy this game digitally or else. Happy Hyperar Mister says, absolute Batman is rad. I have not read it yet. ESRB doesn't really do anything for the consumer. I disagree. It gives parents information about games so that they know what they can expect. Not every parent is a gamer, and it's unreasonable to expect parents to sit down and play an 80-hour game before they let their kid play it, because parents don't have time for that. So the ESRB has its flaws, absolutely has its fucking flaws, but the ESRB definitely helps, I think, parents make decisions about what they're going to buy for their kids. Now, I think that the ESRB needs to make some huge changes when it comes to gambling mechanics in games, especially games that are rated E for everyone, like sports games where you have like the FIFA team or the basketball game. I don't know the names of the games because I don't play the sports games, but like the main part of the game is where you're like using microtransactions in order to buy the chance at buying like the best Michael Jordan. Oh, I got a 4-star Michael Jordan. I could have gotten a 5-star Michael Jordan. I guess I'm going to buy another one so that I can see if I can get the one that I want. Like those gambling mechanics, if you include those gambling mechanics, then it should absolutely 100% be M for mature, because kids shouldn't be gambling. Holy cow, I caught up with chat. Awesome. Very cool. Let me just see where we are here. Analytics. All right. Well, guys, I have a question for you guys. I'm going to post a poll real quick. Start a poll. Did you see any video, audio issues during the stream? Start. All right. I just asked in chat a poll. I don't know if it's going to work or not because my browser keeps telling me that my internet is terrible. Like it goes back and forth. It'll say excellent connection, terrible connection. And I'm just curious if you guys are seeing any issues. And 92% of you who have voted so far have said no issues, which is great. The 8% probably did see some, and maybe they just have better eyes than the rest of us. But I'm just curious how it's working for you guys. %35% of Ghost of Yotei sales are disc. One third is nothing to scoff at. Who cares about the majority as if our wallets aren't important to Sony? Well, the thing is sure, 35% are disc and 35% is nothing to scoff at. But here's the thing that I think Sony thinks. I think Sony thinks, okay, well, if we don't offer discs, those people, that 35%, will still buy the games. The number of people who will say no disc, no buy, and absolutely will not buy it if there's not a physical media, I think the number of people is so small that Sony is correct in saying that they don't matter. I don't agree with that. I still think that they should make discs because they're not that expensive to make. If I can still buy an album for the Grateful Dead, should be able to buy a Blu-ray. Tatog, thank you. Yeah, that could be true too. Watch Sony give deep discounts on PS Plus to try and combat what we're doing. I think that they might do that stuff at first, but that'll dry up as soon as the narrative has moved away. That stuff, like those deep discounts, those will dry up. If that happens, it'll be a temporary thing. It's kind of like I saw the other day that I can't remember which streaming service it was. I think it might have been Peacock. Peacock is coming to shit, what the hell was it? YouTube Premium. So apparently if you subscribe to YouTube Premium, which I do because it's awesome. It's really great. And that I use YouTube Music. But if you subscribe to YouTube Premium, I guess you're also going to have access to Peacock, which is cool. I like to watch SNL. So that means I could cancel my Peacock subscription. Although I'm not subscribed to it right now. I think I canceled it a few months back. But every once in a while I resubscribe so I can watch something. But it's being included, and YouTube has said the price of YouTube Premium is not going to go up as a result of this. And I'm sure at first it won't, but at some point they're going to be like, by the way, we're offering you way more value, so we need some more money. You know what I mean? If you guys have some last minute comments to get in here, let me know right away because I'm going to be wrapping up the stream really soon. Awesome. So not only about a quarter of you voted in this, actually less than a quarter, but most people are saying that we did not have any problems with the live stream, which is great to hear. You get Peacock for free because of work? I wish my job gave me some free stuff. I would never build an all digital library on your console. That's way too much control and investment given over to Sony and / Microsoft. I agree with that, but I have no problem doing it on PC because if Steam shits the bed, I have other options. I can just go to GOG. I can buy stuff elsewhere. Most of the time I buy my games on Steam because Steam gives me the best experience. Nuck V says Steam Machine review when? We'll see. I'm not in a rush to do it. I want to really, have it in hands for a while. And I have not, we don't even have TVs set up in the house right now. Like right now, we don't have a TV set up in the house because we have lath and plaster walls. And I'm like, I don't know how to mount a TV to lath and plaster yet. And I got to do the research, and we just haven't had time. We've been too busy on opening boxes and stuff. Thank you so much. Have you got the Steam Frame? Steam Frame's not out yet, is it? But no, I don't have it. When PS6 struggles next gen, maybe they will finally have to do refunds, drop paid online, etc. I don't think it's going to struggle. I think the only way it would struggle is if Microsoft actually nails it with Project Helix. And I want them to, because I think Sony needs competition, but I don't see that happening. You're duplicating your Steam library best you can on GOG and working to backup disks. Oh, that's so expensive, though. Like rebuying everything in order to have backups, that's rough. Black Vince Infantile said, I moved to PC this past November, been pretty happy since. Yeah, I was a PC gamer for years and years and years. And then I switched over to console when I stopped playing World of Warcraft and focused mostly on Nintendo stuff and my Xbox 360. And that's what I played for a really long time. My PC just didn't get used. And then when the Steam Deck came out, I started buying games on PC again through Steam. And then I went back to being a PC gamer, mostly because being a PC gamer is easier now than it used to be. Like building a PC these days is easier than it used to be. You have cool things like PC Part Picker that can tell you all kinds of compatibility issues that you might not think of. All of that stuff makes, and the fact that Valve now has this interface that's good for the 10-foot interface where you can sitting on a couch with a controller in your hand, makes it a lot easier to play PC games. At least, I don't know why I just picked that up, at least to me. All right, I'm going to end this poll. Can I do a poll on how many PC versus console versus owning both on here? Oh, sure. I'll ask that, but I don't think that we'll have much time for it to get, what do you play on? I don't know if we'll have time to really get good results because I'm going to end the stream soon. But PC, console, both. Start a poll. And just to answer my own poll, or your poll that you just asked me to make, I have everything. I have PC, I have console, I have all of the consoles. I play retro games, I play everything. Which is why I never finish anything, because I'm always trying new things. Ow, cut my finger. Yeah. The poll turned out to be just like Capcom. That's funny. Do you think the price of the Steam machine will go up before waitlisters get their hands on it? Oh. So you mean like you're in the wait list, but then the price goes up before you get a chance to buy it? I don't know. That's interesting. Because all the evidence that we have says that the price of RAM is insane right now. And like, even with the price hikes, Microsoft is losing money when they sell an Xbox these days, even with the price hikes that they have. And I'm sure that Valve's inability to secure enough RAM for the Steam machine is a huge problem for them. They just don't have the years and years and years of connections with suppliers. They don't have the supply chain, and that's why the Steam machine is so expensive. I know that there's some people say that Valve could have just sold it at a loss. I don't see why they would do that. The people who are going to buy it, they already buy games from Valve. There's no reason for them to sell it at a loss. They're not going to recoup their investment by doing it that way. Does emulation count as playing on consoles? That's up to you, ZK. Black Zinfandel says Xbox price hike coming soon, by the way. I'm sure. Yeah, AI can get bent. I hate AI. Generative AI is so bad. I like AI for like searching through a document, but finding information, it's useful for that. Generative AI that's why everything's more expensive. I was at a restaurant and they used AI for the menus, and my daughter happens to work at a restaurant. Like, she works at a restaurant across the corner from that other restaurant. And I guess she was having a conversation with the owner, and the owner was like complaining about prices and stuff, and like electricity prices and water prices and stuff. And she said, well, your AI menus made your electricity and water more expensive. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, most people who are using AI all the time to do this nonsense, they have no idea that they're actually paying for it by more expensive electricity prices and more expensive water prices, because these companies are using up all that electricity and water. Where is this? Ren 1818 Ren says SteamOS versus Bazzite versus Windows. What's your favorite and why? What's your least favorite? Windows is my least favorite because they spy on you, because of advertisements, and because of all of the telemetry and ridiculous updates. SteamOS versus Bazzite, for most people, you won't be able to tell the difference. Most people, when they sit down at SteamOS versus Bazzite, they're going to be like, that's the same picture. That old Office meme. I don't think it really matters versus SteamOS versus Bazzite most of the time. Now, for power users, they're absolutely going to want to go with Bazzite versus SteamOS. But that's because SteamOS is immutable. Immutable? I think it's immutable. It's immutable, meaning you can't change it. Or if you do change it, when the next time it updates, it deletes your changes and fixes itself so that it's more stable. Am I still going to drop a Steam Machine review? I am going to drop. I struggle to use the word review. I do not consider myself to be a reviewer. I just talk about how things work for my use case, and maybe that use case, maybe what I say makes sense for you, but I don't consider myself to be a reviewer. Just like people often say that I'm a journalist, I am not a fucking journalist. Journalists have like standards. I'm just an asshole in an attic. AI data centers needing parts is temporary, right? Feels like the Anakin meme. I feel like it's the Anakin meme right there. No, it's not temporary. They're just going to keep buying stuff. Don't know why people differentiate generative. Bazzite's not immutable, is it? Maybe I was thinking of Catchy. I can't remember. But thank you, Diotis, for the clarification. I appreciate you. Because generative AI looks at other people's work and steals it. It's an expensive plagiarism machine. That's what generative AI is. Using AI to sift through large amounts of data to find information, that's different than having it copy somebody else's work. And that's what it does. AI just copies somebody else's work. They look at what other people have done and they copy that. That's generative AI. And that's why there's a differentiator there. Maybe you should just do game reviews. Alien Isolation being awesome is the start. The thing is like people don't come to me for game reviews. I think that they come to me because I have nuance in my content. When I talk about video game news, I talk about the nuance, and I think that that's why people come to me. Also, I don't finish games. I can't review a game if I haven't finished it. You know what I mean? And I don't finish games because I see the next thing and I'm like, ooh, shiny. And then I go and play that instead. Gentle Stone, I agree 100%. It's great but 1 year, rookie numbers. You got to bump those numbers up, baby. Put a 10-year moratorium on new data center build-outs. All right, guys. You know what? I told nobody about this stream, and you guys showed up, and I appreciate you. So thank you very much. Here's the end to the poll that was requested. 48% of you use both. 42% use only PC, with only 10% of the people watching right now are only on console, which is very interesting. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'm going to check out the video and see how it looks and how it sounds. Tomorrow, we are recording a new episode of the podcast, and I have a new video coming out so that you guys can check that out. So make sure that you subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you guys next time. Until then, stay rad, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.